SD42. That is S55.6. S55.6. Samyutta Nikaya chapter 55, which is on Sotapanna, Sotapati or Sotapanna, stream winning, Sutta number 6. Tapati Sutta. Tapati means Chamberlain. So this is the Chamberlain discourse. Or sometimes you have the plural, Tapatayo, the discourse of the Chamberlain, because there are two of them, the two brothers. This is a very delightful sutta on the faith of a stream winner. The word stream winner is quite suggestible in the sense that there's a stream that we should follow. Okay? And the stream as you know flow in a certain direction. Yeah? We can imagine this stream to be counter current. In other words, it goes upstream rather than downstream. Because the Buddha's teaching is said to be pati sota kami, meaning going against the stream. In other words, the Buddha's teaching is such that it seems to be different from the world. Well, it's no point being the same as the world if we are to really help the world. So the Buddha's teaching, as it were, goes against the currents of the world, if you like. But the currents of the world is stressful, unsatisfactory, suffering, and so on. I mean, if you really notice, whatever happiness or joy or gain we have, only temporary. We may think we have all these wonderful things, but if we do not have the understanding, the wisdom to enjoy them, then a lot of suffering will come, even with the greatest happiness. If we look at what is happiness, we can say it's just the opposite of suffering. They go together, because without one, you don't really appreciate the other. This is not to look at the world in a negative way, or to be overly positive and say everything is alright, things are not always alright. The idea is to look at things realistically. If you look at things realistically, then you can be truly happy no matter what, right? A few weeks ago we studied the Sutta on the Lokadhamma, right? Lokadhamma, the 8 conditions of the world, right? They're always opposites, even happiness. For happiness there is sorrow, praise there is blame, gain there is loss, fame there is obscurity, and so on. So that's the way the world is. It's a package deal. If that's the way things are, and if you understand that, then you can still be happy. So this is what the Buddhists understand to teach us. But the fact remains, if you do not understand the world, there is suffering. Okay, so it's not a negative teaching at all, right? In fact, it's a very positive teaching, telling us how to be happy despite everything. But the Buddha's teaching is against the current, meaning that the Buddha gives us this opportunity, these skills, methods to practice in such a way that we can rise above the world, like a lotus rising above the dark and muddy waters, to shine, to blossom in the bright sun. So, in what way is the Dhamma against the currents of the world? The world is crowded, the world is filled with challenges, the world is always looking outwards, measuring. Whereas the Buddha teaches us to just let go, look within ourselves, and see the inner joy, inner peace. In a sense, we don't really need the world. In a sense. Or, in a bigger way, we have to understand that there are times when we have to let go of the world. When we let go of the world, what does it mean? I mean, you can't, like physically get out of the world. You can take a spaceship and go to Mars if you like, but there's still suffering there anyway. You can go to any corner of the universe. even in the heavens, they're impermanent, they're still suffering, right? So, in other words, when we let go of the world, what we are doing is we are standing back a bit and looking at the bigger picture. It's just like we're walking on this journey, and we stop a while and we look up. Are we in the right direction? Can we see our destination, this mountain or this city in the distance? Right? So it's a kind of stock taking, if you like, seeing the bigger picture, and then setting things right, adjusting our course maybe, and so on. Okay? So if we do this properly and correctly, then we are on the way to awakening. We might even be in the stream towards awakening. And that is the stream winner. Okay, the stream towards awakening at the most 7 more lives. And in this life itself, we see the nature of impermanence, and this idea is very educating. It makes us understand the value of life, because life is impermanent. It makes us value time, because time is passing all the time. It makes us value people, especially those close to us, because we don't really have all the time with people we love. I mean, we may marry someone, we may have close friends, we may have people we know, relatives. New Year is coming and we're going to meet our relatives. And then we find that we still have to go our way. So this impermanence is everywhere. So impermanence is not something negative. It's telling us, are we having the right priorities? Are we valuing what needs to be valued? Are we spending really quality time with people who are important to us? Are we spending quality time doing things that we really need to do? Or are we just going through the motion, wasting our time and doing things which don't really matter? And then we say, oh, we have no time. We have no time to study the suttas. We have no time to read the Dharma. We have no time to meditate. And we go to things that take away our energy. We do things that sadden us, that trouble us. And then we complain how come life is so unfair to us, right? So in other words, we need to spend time with ourselves. That's another way of looking at it, right? So in other words, this stream winner is also someone who has a lot of self-understanding, and yet he doesn't have what is called self-identity view. He doesn't identify with his body. He doesn't see this body in terms of ownership. In other words, he doesn't use I, me, mine in a negative psychological way. He doesn't own the pain, in other words. Okay? He sees pain as part of a learning process, part of impermanence. And this is so... when you hear this, you say, yeah, I understand this. It's so easy, because this is the way the suttas speak. It's not my, my writing, I only translate this and I interpret this, I pass it on to you. In fact, this morning, last night actually, I just finished one more beautiful, I like it, so I call it beautiful reflection. One of the most inspiring places in my life is actually my washroom, my toilet, because that's the most peaceful place. The most private place you can go to. You are sitting down by yourself, I believe. I was just standing there at the toilet door, I told myself, wow, I should write something about a prophet, I say. It's what prophet came to my mind. We like to say the Buddha is not a prophet of God and so on, that's quite true, but I told myself, this prophet is very meaningful, because I was, we studied, or rather, I gave a talk on the Dutta Sutta recently at the Manding Center. So the word Dutta means messenger. The word Dutta can also be translated as prophet. Now, I was just reflecting, I said, sometimes we talk the Dharma, we try to present the Dharma to people, to huge crowds. Today, Sunday, you find lots of, the thousands of people in Singapore listening to some talk somewhere. So the question now is the people who present the Dharma. I always ask this big question, do we live the Dharma that we talk about? Are we just giving a Dharma talk, or are we really living the Dharma? And when we stand before a crowd, people know, this person is living the Dharma. he's sharing the Dhamma. It's not just giving a talk. It's very easy to give a Buddhist talk, but to really share the experience that you truly believe in this teaching, you are practicing it, and you know it will bring you awakening, is quite something else. So this is where the idea of a prophet is so inspiring to me at that moment. I say that my idea is that we all of us, if we call ourselves Buddhists, should understand what does it mean to be a prophet of the Buddha or prophet of the Dhamma, if you like. Now, here I don't mean a prophet, someone comes along and say the world's going to end and frighten you, Here the prophet is a messenger, yes. He's also someone who doesn't, he has nothing to teach. I mean, I'm not enlightened, I have nothing to teach really. And without the suttas, I have nothing to teach, in a sense, nothing useful to teach anyway. But here I am with this sutta telling you, hey, there's this wonderful message, so I'm a messenger. We all should be messengers. When we go out there, we have no choice. When people come up to us with suffering and pain, what do? Well, we try to bring some peace to this person, at least just by listening, by telling this person it's okay. We'll try to help you. Please be patient, right? So you have passed on this message of the Buddha to others. That's a prophet. Of course, the more you understand the sutta, the better prophet you are. You are the voice or the channel through which the Buddha's teaching passes on to others. So you have nothing to teach. You are not the great, prophet with a capital P. It's just a small p prophet in the sense that we are messengers. We need to be messengers to others if we want people to be happy in the Dharma. So happy is very important here. And so you find, in the case of the Srimana, the joy is a very important aspect of his life too. So here is a story of two brothers. Their names are on the board, Isidatta and Purana. One is, Isidatta is the one's returner, and he lives a celibate life, okay, doesn't have sex. And his brother Purana is a stream winner, he has a family. So that they are two very close brothers, and they are chamberlains. They are the king's chamberlain, King Pasenadi's chamberlain. That's why the sutta is called the Chamberlain Sutta. There is another sutta called the Nigasala Sutta, which talks about their death. When they die, they both are reborn into Sutta heavens, and they both become once returners. Okay. That's another story which you can listen to that talk which was been given some time ago, I think. So this sutta shows how devoted these two saints, the once returner and the stream winner, are to the Buddha. Okay, let's look at what has this starts to teach us. Page 36. The Chamberlain Discourse, S55.6. Now you notice I always make a habit of reading the title and reading to you the sutta reference. Why? Because I went through a lot of suffering before I studied the suttas, when it's so difficult to look for a sutta. And someone comes along and said, the Buddha said this, the Buddha said that, and we don't know where the Buddha ever said it. Even this week, there was this quotation in the online, in the internet, and somebody said something. Actually, the Buddha didn't say it, but they kind of tell the story as if spoken by the Buddha, and then people are wondering where did this teaching come from. The story is actually a more like a quick draft of the story. The story is that this man, this yogi, this meditator or this magician, if you like, uses his power to cross a river with his psychic power. And then, according to one version, the Buddha said, why do you want to use this magic power to cross the river? You can just give a penny to the ferryman, he can take you across. So why do you want to use your magic power? You don't need magic power to go across the river. It sounds like a very Buddhistic story. The only problem is there is no such story. There is no such story. Or maybe there's somewhere in the commentaries, but it's not familiar to me at this moment. So people are wondering, where did this come from? And the interesting part is this story, when you Google it, is found in so many places. Even Somerset Maugham, who used to come to Singapore to write his stories, by the way, in his book called The Razor's Edge, quoted this story. So people are wondering, where did this story come from? And none of these sources say where it is from. So, but this story is very familiar to me. I said, oh yeah, this story comes from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. But it's a totally different story in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. Section 1.33 to 134 of D9. D9 is what we call Mahaparinibbana Sutta, chapter 1, section 33, 34. There, the Buddha is walking, he's traveling in his last journey, and he comes to this flooded Ganges river. This river is huge, So, the ferryman doesn't want to. One version is that the ferryman wants to charge the Buddha, so he couldn't pay. But I think here it's because there's so many monks there following the Buddha, in his last journey. So you can imagine how difficult it is for one small ferry to carry them across. So the story went, in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha used his psychic power, and he and all the monks went across the river, just like that. Okay? Of course, whether the story is true or not, I don't know. The Mahaparinibbana Sutta says so. But remember, these are stories compiled by the council elders. They retell this story. And they are often in the habit of putting in a lot of miraculous stories. The Indians love this kind of miracles. It doesn't matter to them whether it's true or not. You've got to have some miracles. It's like putting spice in the curry. You've got to have it. Okay? So, but of course, when they actually practice, they will practice the actual teachings. They're not going to fly across the Ganges, you know what I mean. So they know fact from fancy, put it that way, right? It's just like in Chinese opera or Chinese soap opera, you must have a lot of noise. But if you talk very softly, like a modern Western soap opera, there'll be no audience. So noise is a very important factor in Chinese entertainment, So we see here this story of the Buddha going across, taking all the monks with him, and all the people following him across the Ganges River. Okay? But the Buddha did say something before that. He was standing on the river. He says, we've got to go across. He says, across is like the other side, nirvana, He says, the wise are like those who are letting go of the world, have gone across. I'm just paraphrasing this. But others, they're caught up in the world, they're running up and down on this nearer shore. Okay? This is also found in the Dhammapada verse. I forget the exact number. It could be 83, I think. So anyway, it's there in the Dhammapada where people are caught up, running up and down this shore instead of crossing over. So there you are. You got to know the reference. You got to remember where the story comes from. Otherwise, we're just saying Buddha said this, Buddha said that, and we are messing things up. It becomes a Zen story, right? So, I mean, it may or may not have some useful meaning. So we've got to know the reference. That's why references are very important, and we know where to locate the teaching. So here we are at Chamberlain Sutta. Originating at Savatthi, in Savatthi. Now at that time, some monks were engaged in robe making for the Blessed One, thinking at the end of 3 months, with the completion of this robe, the Blessed One will go on a walking tour, on a peregrination. Okay? So in other words, this is the beginning of the men's retreat, and so the monks are also making their own robes. They got little pieces of cloth, or people give them cloth, so they're making robes. And at the end of it, they're going to present the robe to the Buddha, and it's going to go around India, northern India, to teach the Dharma. So here we see the Buddha's yearly program, if you like. 3 months of rains retreat. They stay in one place because the weather is very wet, it's difficult to travel. So they stay in one place, and also the lay people have a chance to meet the Buddha, to listen to the teachings, to give dana and so on, and meet the monks. Then usually they stay on maybe for 1 more month. Okay. Otherwise, they will spend the rest of the year. That's like 5 to 6. That is 9 months, 8 to 9 months, traveling around India to teach. So this again today, now you still see this routine with the Theravada monks. Most of them would keep the rains retreat on 3 months from July, roughly July to October, according to the lunar calendar. And then the rest of the year they'll be traveling around. Of course, there are also allowances for monks to, on important missions or for good reasons, they can take leave of the rains, but not more than 7 days. If they break the 7-day limit, then they lose that wasa. In other words, they will not have 1 year added to their seniority. It's a very interesting concept. The seniority of the monks are counted by the rains retreat they properly observe. Okay? So if they miss the rains retreat, then they will forfeit 1 year technically. But as far as I know, no monk has done that anyway. But it's a very interesting fact. Okay, so here we have an idea of the time here. It's the beginning of the rains retreat, and the Buddha is going to leave in 3 months' time on a tour. And this is going to have an interesting effect on the 2 Chamberlains who are referred to in section 3. Now at that time, the Chamberlains Isidatta and Purana were staying in Saduka on some business. The Chamberlain Isidatta and Purana heard this. Some monks, they said, are engaged in rope making, and the Buddha is staying for retreat, is going to live in 3 months' time. So they heard about this. I suppose Saduka is quite near where the Buddha is staying here, in Savatthi. So what did they do? Okay, so they thought, at the end of 3 months, with the completion of this robe, the Blessed One will go on a walking tour. 4. Then the Chamberlain Isidatta and Purana posted a man on the road saying, "My good man, if you were to see the Blessed One, the Arahat, the fully self-awakened one, coming, you must tell us." So after waiting there for 2 or 3 days, the man saw the Blessed One coming from afar. Okay, so now here we must have a sense of timing. This is tricky. So this is where, if you learn literature, it helps you to see the sutta as literary text. You have a better idea of the timing. Here, if you look at the way the dialogue is going on, by the time you reach section 5, 3 months have passed. You've come to the end of the rains retreat because the Buddha is leaving. Okay, so this man, the person employed by Isidatta and Purana, is waiting on the road to see is the Buddha coming or not. So once you see the Buddha coming, it means the rains retreat is over. The Buddha is going on his tour of northern central India to Trishtadharma. And let's see how the 2 brothers responded. 6. Then the Chamberlains Isidatta and Purana approached the Blessed One, saluted him, and followed close behind him. Then the Blessed One came down from the road and approached the foot of a certain tree and sat down on a seat that had been spread out. Okay, so this is a typical situation. You see, you want to meet the Buddha, you got to find out where he is. You can't text him or send him a message. You just wait and see where he is, and you go up to him. He's always there, accessible. So there he is on the high road, he's walking. So these 2 brothers go up to the Buddha, pay respects to him, and just follow behind. That's the message, that's the convention, meaning these 2 people want to talk to the Buddha. And of course, they don't say, "Hey, let's go to some nice cafe, have lunch," or no. They go to a beautiful shady tree. Okay, obviously there must be some kind of level ground under the tree. It's a very common way the monks and the people in ancient India would kind of meet each other. But even today, you can see this very interesting habit of the Indians. You just need to go to Jurong East, as you go to the station, you see lots of people sitting, especially on holidays, like Diwali, you see them sitting on the grass under the train track, and then they're sitting in friendly chat, small little closed groups, or if not there, then they'll be sitting in the open pavement. For some reason, they just love sitting on the floor, level ground, rather than, say, chatting in the coffee shop, So there is a kind of cultural thing. Right? So, and you find this is there in Indian culture, for thousands of years. So the Buddha sits under the tree, someone has spread a mat for him, and these two brothers go up to him to talk with him. Alright? So now the chat or the conversation starts. So the section 8, okay? So one of the brothers, probably the elder brother, says, Bhante, we hear that the Blessed One will be leaving Savatthi to walk amongst the Kosalas. At that time we are displeased, we are saddened, thinking the Blessed One will be far away from us. Okay? Now I have underlined for you all the verbs, because here you see a delightful use of Pali grammar, what's called grammar of time in terms of spirituality. So you have future tense, present tense, past tense being used. It's a great way to learn Pali, these beautiful sentences. So here the brother said, we hear that you will be living, and that saddens us, right? So just to hear that you will be living already saddens us. So here we see a stream winner as a very human person. He's not unfeeling. He has this wonderful connection with the Buddha. So he actually says, we're going to miss you, right? So we should not have really fantastic high-flown ideas about a stream winner, that he is because he's a saint, he has no feeling. Not at all. He's still a human being. He's not an arhat yet. But he is a very moral person, a very kind and charitable person, as we will soon see. So, then the speaker goes on, the Blessed One will be far away from us. Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One has left Savatthi to walk amongst the Kosalas. Kosalas is the tribe, the Kosala people. That at that time we are displeased, we are saddened, thinking the Blessed One is far away from us. Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One will be leaving the Kosalas, to walk amongst the Malas, at that time we are displeased, we are saddened, thinking the Blessed One will be far away from us. Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One has left the Kosalas to walk among the Malas, we are displeased. At that time we are saddened, thinking the Blessed One is far away from us. Okay, a lot of repetitive passages here, but there's a pattern. Okay, so the pattern is this: the Buddha will do something, and then he has done it. Okay, so he goes to a certain place. Right? In other words, these two brothers are saying, when we hear that you are going to leave this place, the Kosala country, you're going to the next country, we feel rather sad. And then you have gone. So we think about that, we still feel sad. And then the next country, so we hear that you are going to go away, we feel sad. And then you have gone away again. So here they are picturing, where's the Buddha now? Right? So they reflect on the Buddha. Now what is interesting here, if you look very carefully in this whole passage, there are many countries mentioned here, about half a dozen. They are actually doing what is called Buddha Nusati, recollection of the Buddha, but in a very interesting way. They are looking at the Buddha and they are saying, wow, this is such a great and wonderful teacher, and he's going away. So they're kind of missing him, but in a good way, if you know what I mean. It's not something bad, I mean, they're not like beating their breasts and rolling on the ground. Nothing of that sort is mentioned here. They're just expressing We call it, this kind of experience, it's a spirit, there's a special spiritual term for it. It's called udacha, restlessness. Yeah. So udacha is one of the last factors to be overcome, because even the non-returner has it. For example, non-returner is a wonderful person, he has no sexual desires, but still he can feel quite sad. Let's say if you're not interested in the Dharma, or you speak against the Dharma, like a lot of scholars do that, they speak against the Dharma, they have confusing ideas about the Dharma, so the non-returner will feel sad about it. So that will come under udacha. A sense of troubling feeling. Let's say you are a practicing Buddhist and you see people gambling or doing bad things, you feel troubled. You say, wow, look at all these people, don't they realize they're going to suffer on account of this, okay? That kind of feeling is called udacha. In a sense, it's a feeling rooted in compassion, right? But it's a kind of, you see the world and you just wish things to be better. And you seem to lack the power to change things. So you feel a little bit uneasy, unhappy about that. And so,
hopelessness?
I wouldn't say hopelessness. It's more like you say, can't this thing be better? This sort of thing. And yeah, it may move you on to do something better. They say, wow, I better study more suttas now. I better make more effort to do something. So it's not exactly hopelessness. It is something that troubles you, yes, but it's going to move you on in a positive way. Okay, right. So and this pattern goes on. Next country is the Wajis, and then the Kasi country, number 11, and you go to number 12, it's the Magadha. All right. So each time you see the Buddha's traveling, you say, oh, the Buddha's going to go there, Buddha's so far away, and now he is there, he's very far away. Now he's going to leave this place, and he's going to go to this place, still far away. You imagine like he's going from Singapore to JB, to Malacca, to Kuala Lumpur, like that, And then, after that, then comes the reverse, the return journey, 13 onwards, okay? So this time, the tense changes to will be. Well, basically, it's the same, but it's reversed, okay? 13. But Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One will be leaving Magadha. Okay, before I go into this, let's look at the map. So an picture idea of what are we talking about. Look at page 32. Can you see Magadha at the bottom? 32, yeah. Can you see somewhere on the right hand? Yeah, near where Calcutta is. Magadha, can you see Magadha? Okay, Magadha. And then Magadha is Kasi, right? Kashi, this is the Sanskrit spelling. Okay, so if you like, you can draw an arrow there. So from Magadha, the Buddha travels to Kasi. And from Kasi, he goes up to the right, top right-hand corner. Vriji is the Sanskrit spelling for Vaji, okay? Can you see that, Vriji? And then to the left, Malas, okay? And then northwest to the Kosala, okay? So you can, Kosala is another country. So Kosala is ruled by Pasenadi, and I think these two brothers are from Kosala, okay? So then the Buddha will return from there down backwards, following the arrow again. So now we are following the journey back, okay? So I'm reading 13. But Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One will be leaving Magadha, or the Magadhas to walk in Kasi, at that time we are pleased. Okay, now there's something different. Just now, all the time, the operative term is we are displeased, right? Okay, so this time it says we are pleased. In other words, the Buddha is leaving this place. In other words, the return journey has started. This is a very interesting use of the motif of the return journey, which is a very famous idea in mythology. So the Buddha. So he says, okay, the Buddha is leaving Magadha now, and he'll be near us, right? The Blessed One will be near us. So you think about that, feels very happy. Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One has left Magadha to walk in Kasi, at that time we are pleased, we are delighted, thinking the Blessed One is near us, near to us. Okay, notice present tense. Right? And then this goes on. The Buddha reaches Kasi and he'll be leaving Kasi. He said, good, the Buddha is leaving Kasi. So in other words, these two brothers are messengers of all these places, right? Because they are quite influential people anyway, serving as the king's chamberlain. And then from Kasi, the Buddha goes to the Vajis and then to the Malas and then back to the Kosalas. Okay? So, actually, sorry, just now I started from Magadha. Actually, you should start from Kosala downwards, okay? The map there, right?
You mean he walk all the way?
Yeah, walk all the way, yes. Buddha's time. So, and that's what keeps them healthy, those monks. Of course, they walk very slow, they don't rush. Maybe one day they just walk a few kilometers, and then they sit down, they have their meal, and then they teach a lot. They do a lot of sitting also, because they teach the Dharma. I think they do a lot more sitting than walking actually. Right? So walking to them is a great way to exercise. Okay. So the Buddha and the monks return to Kosala. And look at 17.2, the last line where it says, the Blessed One is near us, because the Buddha is back in Kosala. Okay. 18. Indeed, now the Buddha replies. Okay, the Buddha says, indeed, Chamberlains, that's okay. Before I read the Buddha's reply, notice what the two brothers are saying. They say when we hear the Buddha is leaving, we feel sad. But when we hear the Buddha is returning, we feel happy. Right?
Udacha also the delight, the second part.
No.
Is that also udacha?
No, we wouldn't say delight is udacha. It's more like pasada, joyful state.
So udacha is negative.
Yeah, udacha, in a sense, negative. Yeah. Then the Buddha is explaining to the two brothers why they feel that way. Basically, the Buddha is saying that's because you're a lay person, you have not renounced the world. That's why you feel like that. Okay. So the Buddha says, indeed, Chamberlains, that's because the household life is a confinement, a dusty place. The going forth is like the open air. This is enough for you, Chamberlains, to be diligent. Okay? Now it's quite ironic coincidence because today, just as we were leaving the house and we were going downstairs to the vehicle, there was this neighbor from one of the lower floors, came to the lift, not seen her before, but she's friendly, she's chatting to us. She just needed someone to complain to. So she was saying she has a very bad neighbor who smokes and utter vulgarities and they complain to the MP and so on and so forth. And give us quite a long description of the problems she faced. Of course, we try to as kindly listen as possible, And then you say, this place is becoming so crowded. I'm going elsewhere. I'm going back to my old house or something like that. So I said, that's very interesting. That's what we're going to talk about today. So I was just joking around. I said, we should tell her we have a cure for that. It's called the metta spray. You just go and spray a bit of metta, and you got to send out this metta to the neighbors because that's the way our flats are. It's very crowded. People either totally cut themselves off, or when they do communicate, it can be quite annoying, right? So if you get the ones in between, that's very wonderful. So this is what the Buddha is trying to tell the two brothers. It says, the life of a layperson is very confined. Lots of things to do. It's very crowded. You have a family and you have to do so many things, Now, then you have this very surprising repartee, this response from the two brothers, we're talking about one's a Utana, the other is a Arahat, the other is a stream winner, we expect to say, yeah, sadhu bhante, right? Oh, they didn't say that, What did they say?
What does Buddha's second line mean to be diligent?
Oh, this is not for you to be diligent. That means for you to practice harder in your Dhamma practice, to put more effort.
What do you mean when you said to them, this is enough for you to be diligent?
Okay, if you look at the way the suttas go, diligent here means there's something more to do. You should work harder now to attain the next level of sainthood, to let go of this kind of what is you're being attached to now. Because that's what giving you all this sense of unease when you feel just because I'm going away, you feel so sad. That's the way it is. So you got to bring yourself up one more level, so to speak, to practice further, to attain a higher level.
So what is enough for them? What do you mean by this is enough?
Oh, enough means arahathood. Arahat. I mean, that is the spiritual language of the Buddha. Once a monk has attained arahathood, then the Buddha will say, that is enough. Because there's nothing beyond that. Okay, so this is the language of the Buddha in terms of awakening.
So he's telling them that you'll be arahats.
He's telling them, if that's the way you feel, maybe you should meditate a bit more, practice a bit more, then you rise above the state where you don't have to feel like that anymore. So the Buddha is, in a sense, equipping to them, telling them to, well, that's the way you are, because you're a lay person, that's how you will feel. And there's a very similar answer is given to Mahanama. Mahanama also was a one-sritana. And then he tells the Buddha, he says, how come, I practice all the teachings you give me, I'm a one-sritana myself, but I still have sensual thoughts. Greed, hatred, delusion still arise in me a little bit, Then the Buddha will say, that's because you still are a layman, see? Because as a one-sritana, is still a layman in this case. He's a layman, one-sritana. So the Buddha says only when you attain the higher level, right? Non-return, arahathood, where you have broken the fetter of sensuality, then only you don't have all these kind of thoughts. So that's the meaning of diligent, go a little further. So the Buddha is saying, you should go a little harder and bring yourself up one more level. So that's the meaning. Okay? So you notice one little word like that can mean quite a lot in spiritual terms. Then, okay, here's a reply by the brothers. Instead of saying sadhu, they give a repartee. They almost contradict the Buddha, if you like. Not say contradict, they kind of say we think slightly differently. Section 19. There is Bhante, another confinement that is even more confining and regarded as truly more confining than that. Okay? Now, can you imagine someone saying this? If they are not streamliner and one-sritana, they would really be presumptuous. Okay? But here, they have attained a certain level. So in a sense, what they say does carry weight. At least to us, when we look at this, we know, say, oh wow, here's a saint talking to the Buddha. And he's saying, oh, there's something else, even more confining than what you're saying. But they're not really contradicting the Buddha. What they're saying is, they're saying, okay, the Buddha says, family life is confining. But here, we are having another kind of difficulty. Then they're going to explain what that means. So what they're saying is, yes, household life is confining and crowded and so on. But what they're saying is their life is different. Their life is not the kind of family life because they're living in a palace. So they're saying, oh, wait till you live in the palace. I mean, if you talk like the modern Singaporean, you say, wait till you do this, So what they're saying is if you work in the palace, you'll find that it's even more confining than you live at home. That makes a lot of sense. Because if you live at home, at least it's your own home. To a certain extent, you can do what you like. But in the palace, you are the king's servant. Okay? So this is what the direction is taking. Okay, let's look what he's going to say. Or rather, the two brothers are going to say. Look at 19.2. Okay, the 19.2, the Buddha asked them, now what Chamberlains is that other confinement that is even more confining and regarded as truly more confining than that? So notice here, the Buddha doesn't read their mind. The Buddha simply say, okay, what is it? Tell me. So you see here a very friendly conversation going on. Then they explain. 20. Here, Bhante, when the Kosala Raja Pasyanadi wishes to visit the royal garden, we have to prepare the Kosala Raja Pasyanadi's royal elephants and seat his loving consorts, one before him, the other behind him. And Bhante, the fragrance. Okay, first of all, this 20 or 20.1, they are talking about being servants of the king. So they have to prepare all these things, the elephant. And it's a big thing when the king goes out. Okay. Then number 20.2, and Bhante, the fragrance of the sisters is just like that of a perfume casket that is left open. So are these women decked with fragrance. So there's a note on sensuality. So, these women are so beautiful, the smell is so inviting, if you like. So here, there is all this sensuality going around. Okay? This is just a statement first, that they have not really, there's something else to say, just wait a moment, okay? 20.3, and Bhante, the bodily touch of these sisters are just like that of tufts of down or of cotton. So are these royal maidens raised in comfort. So here we see these two brothers actually working in what's called the Antepura. Antepura means inner city. You have the forbidden city in Beijing. Only royalty inside. No one else allowed in there, the harem. In fact, the word harem comes from the Arabic word haram, meaning forbidden. But these two people, these two brothers, have free access to this. They're serving all these women. It's a very essential place. It's the most worldly of places. So the women look pretty and sensuous and so on, and they look very inviting. Look at 20.4. And Bhante, at times too, we have to look after or guard the royal elephants, and we have to look after the sisters too. We have to look after ourselves too. All right? Yet, okay, now comes the good part. Yet, we know not any bad thought arising towards the sisters. Okay, here bad thought, of course, refers to no sensual desires, because they are saints. So in other words, they say, although we see all these things, we live in this kind of environment, we don't really feel bad about it, we don't have any bad thoughts. But still, they say, this Bhante is the other confinement that is ever more confining, and regarded as truly more confining than that, than the household life. So here what they're saying is, you are serving the king, you're taking care of their women, you're taking care of their elephants, and you've got to do it all right. Because if you don't, you're in serious trouble, Actually, these two brothers, they are very respected and loved by the king anyway. Okay? I mean, to really serve, to be so intimate and so close to the king, to be able to take care of his women and his elephants, you've got to be really close to the king. In fact, in another sutta, I think it's the Dhammacettiya Sutta, one of the other suttas, the Buddha King Pasyanadi tells the Buddha, almost complaining, he says, I have these two chamberlains, and these are the two, who, my other servants, whenever they sleep, they will respect me, their heads will be towards me. But these two people, they are so devoted to you that they will first find out where you are that night, and they will put their head in that direction, even if their feet points towards me. Can you imagine that the king tells the Buddha how brave they are in disobeying me? They're not afraid to lose their life. That is their devotion to the Buddha.
How could it be so that they will protect him in the event of the danger?
No, here it's more like That is a very interesting idea of direction. I mean, today you have the Muslim idea of the Qiblat, directing their head towards the holy city. Of course, to us, the Qiblat also points to Buddha Gaya, so we do share similar sentiment of holy place. So here is more like respect to the Buddha. Even Sariputta will do that. But Sariputta is different. He doesn't put his head towards the Buddha. He puts his head towards where his first teacher is staying. His first teacher is Asaji. Because of his first teacher, he meets the Buddha, so he shows gratitude to the first teacher by sleeping, putting his head oriented to the teacher. So this is just a gesture of gratitude, of respect to the teacher. It's a very interesting notion here. So this shows you the faith of these two brothers, you see. Who are not even afraid of the king's ire, they don't mind even, lying down with their head towards the Buddha, even if the feet points towards the king. So we're talking about these two saints, if you like, two layman saints. Bante is the Buddha. Okay. Sometimes Bante also can be the Bante also means tuan in Malay, So a worker can call the boss Bante also. So you must see the context. But usually if it's a monk, it refers to the monk, or refer to the Buddha also can. Alright? Okay, so here the two brothers, the saints, what they're saying is, we are working in the palace, so we have to follow all this protocol, these rules, and you've got to really please the king. So we are not really in control of the situation. Okay? Whereas, although the home life also is confining, at least there you have control. It's your home, But here, it's more confining because it's not our home. We have to serve the king. And that's what they mean, you see. So in a sense, they are not contradicting the Buddha. They are just giving an addendum, something extra. So here you are, there's something I got to tell you. Right?
You mean they went out of the palace to meet the Buddha?
Yeah, yes. They went out of the palace. So here, anyway, the Buddha replied, very true. The Buddha said, indeed, Chamberlain, 22, indeed, Chamberlains, that's because the household life is a confinement, a dusty path. The going forth is like the open air. So the Buddha said that's true. So what the Buddha is saying, of course, the palace life also is a home life. This is what the Buddha is trying to say. Okay? So in a sense, they're not contradicting the Buddha, they're just expanding on what the Buddha is saying. So the Buddha continues and says, this is enough for you, Chamberlain, to be diligent. Okay, so notice the Buddha repeats the instructions. So here again, it's very interesting. You see in section 18, the Buddha says the same thing as in section 22. In other words, the Buddha's instruction is the same. It doesn't change his word there. It's the same Dharma. It's just here, although the two brothers seem to disagree with the Buddha, it is only by way of extending the Buddha's teaching. Okay? Then the Buddha continues. 23, the Buddha talks about the four qualities of a stream Venana. The noble disciple Chamberlain who has these four qualities is a stream Venana, not bound for the lower world, sure of going over to self-awakening. What are the four? Here, Chamberlain, the noble disciple is accomplished in wise faith in the Buddha. Thus, so too is he, the Blessed One, for he is Arahat, fully self-awakened, accomplished in wisdom and conduct, well, fairer, know of the world's peerless guide of admirable persons, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. These are the 9 qualities of the Buddha. Okay, let's read the rest, the qualities of these are reflections on the 3 jewels. Okay, are you ready? Number 2, he is accomplished with wise faith in the Dharma thus. Well taught is the true teaching of the Blessed One, to be self-realized, timeless, for one to come and see, accessible or leading onward, to be personally known by voice. He is accomplished with wise faith in the Sangha thus. Of good conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Of upright conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Of right conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Of proper conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. These four pairs of persons, the 8 individuals, are this Blessed One's community of holy disciples, worthy of offerings, worthy of hospitality, worthy of gifts, worthy of salutation with the lotus palms, an incomparable field of merit for the world. So here we have, these are the first 3 qualities of the streamlinner. We have wise faith in the 3 jewels. Okay, what does this mean? Just very briefly, wise faith in the Buddha means they see the Buddha as the ideal of awakening. In other words, there is this human being who is capable of becoming someone who can rise above all human weaknesses and rise even above the gods themselves, to be totally awakened and to be free of suffering. And they also understand this Buddha as a human being will pass away. And with the passing away of the Buddha's truth becomes even more real, more true. We do not mourn the Buddha's passing. We celebrate the Buddha's passing in the sense that he has come to us with this wonderful teaching, and although he has passed away, the Dharma is still with us. So, and that's the second jewel. The jewel is precious, that's why they call jewel. So the streamlinner has faith in the Dharma in the sense that the Dharma is also the Buddha's guide. So even when the Buddha has passed away, the Dharma is still there to guide us. So in effect, the Buddha is still guiding us through the Dharma. So the Dharma is the method of self-awakening, the path we take towards self-understanding and self-liberation, which any one of us can walk. And if we do that, then we will attain so-called membership, if you like. We become an insider, we become one of the saints. Then we are truly part of the community, the holy community. That's the Sangha. So they have deep faith, wise faith in the Sangha in that sense. So these are the 3 jewels. The ideal of human awakening, the path to self-awakening, and then those who are themselves awakened. And then number 4, the Buddha continues to say, this is the 4th quality of a streamlinner. He dwells at home with a heart free from the stain of stinginess, devoted to charity, open-handed, delighted in giving, devoted to charity is kind of repeated. Devoted to charity, delighting to have a share in giving. And the last one is very important, delighting to have a share in giving. I will speak more about this in a moment. Now this quality 4 is very interesting because this is the only sutta where you have quality number 4 as this devotion to charity. Because usually the 4 limbs of quality of a streamlinner, the 4th one is what is called the moral virtue beloved of the saints. Perfect moral virtue. In other words, the streamlinner will keep the precepts very well. Yeah? But here, why did the Buddha mention number 4? Because here, number 1, the 2 brothers, one is already a one-returner, the other is a streamlinner. That means their moral virtue is already beloved of the saints. In other words, the moral virtue is very good, perfect, if you like. But they are special. In fact, the 2 brothers are declared by the Buddha as the foremost of lay disciples in the whole of Kosala, the whole state of Kosala, who enjoy to be a part of giving. They always participate in group giving, in communal giving. They're always doing that. They're charitable in that sense. Okay? So this is where we come to a very interesting teaching, which is actually given by Sariputta about the nature of giving. in this connection, if you look at page 35, section 322. Having a share in giving or communal giving. So in other words here, they do not give alone, okay? But if they know someone is making dana, what they all say, can I have a share? I'd like to join in, right? So this is where Sariputta in the Dhammapada story, chapter 1, number 7, he says, layman, if one were to give but does not encourage others to give, wherever one is reborn, one receives the blessing of wealth, but not the blessing of a following or a retinue. In other words, if you give, you alone give, but you don't encourage others to practice charity too, the next life you'll be rich, but you'll be alone. Because you don't make effort to make friends. Yeah? Number 2, if one were to give, if one were not to give, but encourages others to give, wherever one is reborn, one receives the blessing of a following, but not the blessing of wealth. Like here. So here's where you encourage others, but you yourself don't do it. So you have a lot of friends, but you won't be rich. Next, if one were not to give and also not encourage others, then of course you won't have both blessings. Right? You will be poor and lonely too. On the other hand, the best would be one were to give and also encourage others to give. Wherever one is reborn, in 100 births, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, one receives both the blessings of wealth and the blessing of a following. Right? So here, sorry?
Piya, Sariputta's words, here the passage talks about encouraging others to give. But encouraging others to give is not the same as sharing in the gift.
Yeah, no, I'm just quoting a related quote. It's not exactly the word. Here, encouraging others to give, I would say also include, right? You don't just make others give, but you also join them. So the encouraging includes that. We've got to expand a bit. Here, I'm only quoting a kind of parallel story.
Why is it so important to share the gift?
Fellowship. Imagine you come to a temple and everything you do alone, you don't talk to people don't smile, you just offer dana and you go away. That's strange, right?
That's a different thing. That's a different...
No, the point I'm talking about fellowship, right? So, I mean, you give and then you find your friends also are giving, you work together basically. So, we have to imagine a little bit more here about fellowship, in other words. The idea is doing things together, social harmony, practicing the Dharma in harmony. The Dhammapada says that those who walk together harmoniously in the same way, that is great happiness. So here is an allusion, a reference to doing things harmoniously as a group, as a community. So we've got to see the bigger area, not just alone in this case. Of course, it's not saying that it's wrong to do alone. You can still do alone. But if you do it in a group, it's much better. Also, on the economic side, you would not waste so much wealth. See? So in other words, you share with others. Conversely, when gifts are made, the Buddha also has something to say here. Once Mahapajapati made a very beautiful robe, a special robe for the Buddha, and he wanted to give it to the Buddha. Mahapajapati always seems to have a bit of a problem with the Buddha because she was the foster mother of the Buddha. She was the queen of the country, Sakya country. So the Buddha said no. The Buddha didn't reject the gift outright, but the Buddha said, no, you don't give it to me, but you present it to the Sangha. Make it a gift to the Sangha, not a personal gift to me. If you give to the Sangha, your merit will be much greater. Of course, that's the typical language of the suttas 2,500 years ago. So what does this mean? When the queen gives, let's say the Buddha accepts it and says, thank you, So people say, wow, the queen gave the Buddha a robe, So there's only something good happens between queen and Buddha. And people say, oh, she was his previous foster mother, Moreover, she's rich and she was rich, so powerful, so she can afford to make such a robe, So you see people talk like that. On the other hand, if she gives to the Sangha, that's different. Anyone can use it. Anyone who needs the robe will use it. So what the Buddha is saying, it will benefit more people that way. It's not a personal gift, it is a communal gift. So in other words, we're talking about charity which benefits the most number of people. Okay? Good idea on the nature of giving.
What I don't understand is, why did the Buddha have to tell these two men, two chamberlains, these qualities when they are already...
You see the two reasons at least. Number one is they have not actually told the Buddha yet. That's one possible explanation. Number two, it is for us, the audience today. We see a story here. So it's for our own edification. Alright? So it's if you look at it, obviously they have not declared this state before. So the Buddha is telling them these are the qualities. So you find this kind of development common enough in the sutta. So after the Buddha listed these 4 qualities, remember I explained to you quality number 4, right? These 2 brothers, they love sharing, having a share in the giving with others. They're this kind of person. They like to be part of this when someone gives something to the Sangha. So they reply, let me see, alright. So second part, everything repeats. Second part, the Buddha says, now, I see that you have all these qualities. Okay? These 2 brothers say, or could we miss you, this and that and so on, among other things, right? So then the Buddha tells the 2 brothers, first the Buddha lays out the 4 qualities, and then the Buddha says, you have all these 4 qualities. In some other contexts, you find in the story of Dhammadina, for example, Dhammadina Sutta, we did that last, did we do it here? Oh, Dhammadina is another place. Dhammadina has got 400 friends, follow him, go to see the Buddha, and the sutta is very interesting. Dhammadina is a lay person. This is the only time I think his name is mentioned in this case. There are many Dhammadinas, so this is one Dhammadina with 500 followers, lay followers. They come to see the Buddha and they pay respect to the Buddha. Then the Buddha teach them, give them very simple advice, wonderful advice. Buddha says, as lay followers, you should study the suttas which are deep and profound, so that you can advance a bit more. And you know what they reply? They say, Bhante, we are very busy lay people. We have no time to study the suttas. and they are streamliners, all of them, mind you. So here again, you see, although they're streamliners, they say they're very busy, they have no time to study sutta. But they say, please teach us something higher than what they have learned. Okay? Because they say they keep the precepts and so on. So basically here, what they are saying is, they have no time to do study, but they rather hear it directly from the Buddha. Then the Buddha says, okay, that's good, you're all stream winners, and these are the things you should practice, And they say, we have all these things, and then they're very happy because the Buddha confirmed their state as stream winners. So there we have a situation where the Dhammadina and his 500 friends actually tell the Buddha, oh, we have all these qualities. But here, the Buddha says, you, the 2 brothers, have these qualities.
You mean the Buddha said they are stream winner?
Yes.
One is stream winner,
One,
one is returner.
correct, yeah. So the Buddha doesn't say you are both stream winners. The Buddha says you both have these qualities. Because one of them is more than a stream winner, remember? It's a once returner, right? So in other words, a once returner also has this quality, these 4 qualities.
Then how we are going to do
I'll answer that in a moment. So here, another reason why number 4 is different, very interesting. is because here the Buddha is talking not to just a stream winner, but to also one who is a one-streeter. So in a sense, you might like to say these are the qualities of both a stream winner and a one-streeter, okay? All right. How do we know we are one-streeter or not? Okay, imagine you are eating a meal, all right? Now you know when you're hungry, and you're eating and eating. You don't know you're full at once. In fact, you find that the Buddha says someone who practices restraint in eating should stop eating before it feels full. Now this is not easy to do, because you go on eating and say, oh, I'm still hungry, and then after you feel so full, you say, oops, I've overeaten, right? So in other words, you have to really tell yourself, I got to stop now. So you might have some level of self-control. Anyway, so basically after eating, you know you are full. So when you practice the Buddha's teaching, there comes a time when you look at yourself and you know all these suttas and teachings and your own inner peace. You tell yourself, okay, I don't get angry so often now. In fact, as far as I remember, I don't get angry at all. I kept all the precepts, I've not broken any of them. Or if I had broken this, it is not because I want to, but it's a different situation. I did not mindfully, I was not aware of it, and so on. So in other words, you examine your life, then you begin to tell yourself, wow, looks like I have kept all these teachings, and perhaps I'm a streamwinner. Okay, so you're not sure, you just say perhaps. And then time passes, you look back, you become more sure. Okay? By the time you pass away, your mind will be such that you're at peace. The Buddha says, if you practice this perception of impermanence, then definitely by that moment of dying, you will be a stream winner. At the moment of passing, next life definitely continue as a stream winner. So this is one way we can know. But again, it's tricky here because it's not something you would call a press conference and say, hey, I want everybody to know from now on I am a stream winner, right? You wouldn't do that because you could be mistaken. But if you're not sure, you will not be mistaken. The important thing is how you live your life. Whether you say, I am this or I am not, it doesn't really matter. Okay? But here the Buddha is someone who can look at someone and say, wow, okay, you have lived this consistent life, so you are like that. Okay? So that's the reason why the Buddha discourages us from declaring our status in this way. However, the suttas tell us it is possible, so that we go on practicing. Right. So then, when the Buddha also declares 26. What do you think, Chamberlains? How many people are there amongst the Kosalas who are your equals in regard to partaking of a share in giving? So this is the Buddha declaring that these two brothers are the foremost of those who give a share, who enjoy giving a share in giving. Right? So that's why the Buddha mentioned quality number 4 of the stream winners also. And then the two brothers are very happy. The sutta closes with their word, or we call it a sadhukara. This Bhante is a gain for us. This Bhante is well gained by us, that the Blessed One knows thus of us. Right? So I'm very happy. We are very happy that the Buddha has confirmed our situation, that we are true practitioners. So overall, if we look, what can we learn from this sutta? That even stream winners do feel a sort of attachment to the Buddha, if you like, a sense of sadness when they miss the Buddha, and they feel of joy when they feel something good is coming, and they live just like any other lay person. They work, but when they work, they are good workers. And yet, even as good workers, their loyalty to the Buddha always comes first. This reminds me of someone I knew, one of my students from NUS. As Buddhists, we have the 5th precept, we don't drink. And most graduates, when they go for interviews, they think more of the job than anything else. They forget about the precepts for a while. So even if the interviewer or employer asks them, do you drink? They probably won't mind saying, I don't mind drinking, and so on. But this particular person, he was interviewed, and when the interviewer asked him, if you go for, you take people out, to entertain them, you might have to drink with them. So how is that with you? He says, I don't think I can do that because I'm a Buddhist and I don't drink. But I don't mind taking them out. If you want to drink, that's fine. But I don't drink because I'm a Buddhist. And he dared to say that to the interviewer. So the interesting thing, the interviewer was quite impressed. He says, I'm very happy you are honest. So you got the job. So here is where I think if you're really an open person, you are courageous, these interviewers will know it, rather than you are sly and so on, and that also can be read. So here we're talking about, are you standing up for the Dharma, basically, right? So here we see these two brothers standing up for the Dharma, and the streamer also is courageous in faith. They are willingly, happily, courageously stand up for the Dharma, always.
But streamers,
Then he said he will drink it.
No, of course not. Yes, sir.
so do streamers still have traces of defilements?
Oh yes, of course. But not the gross ones. Number one, they do not have the idea of I, me, my, very diminished. Okay? But they still don't understand nature of non-self, things like that. This complicated idea about non-self, or this very deep ideas. They may still have a bit of sense of selfishness, maybe, but not much as the ordinary person. Number two, they do not have doubts about the Dharma. Their minds are very clear about it because they study the suttas and practice. Number three, they do not they're not attached to rituals and vows. In other words, they don't do things merely because you need to do it, to show other people things, or to depend on something outside of themselves, in other words. In a very simple way, we can say they are emotionally independent individuals. Emotionally independent, in other words, they can be happy for themselves. They do not need the approval of others. On the other hand, we must be careful not to say they are emotionally alienated either, because the emotional alienation can also say, I don't need you, that's different. Yeah. In other words, in a sense, we are saying, I don't need your approval for this, but I do this because I'm right. It's just like when Aristotle had a quarrel with Plato, this very interesting comment made. They were good friends, so then they disagreed on something, So Aristotle said, in terms of truth, even between friends, truth comes first. I say, wow, two great philosophers talking to each other, They say, in other words, you cannot water truth down just because you are a friend doesn't mean the truth is not true, When it comes to friendship, the truth is still truth. Truth comes first. That's a very wonderful way of true friends in that way. They still respect the truth.
It means they haven't reached an impermanence, non-self.
Who?
The stream winner.
What about stream? Yes, what about it?
They don't reach the state of realizing impermanence.
No, on the contrary, they understand impermanence very well. In fact, it is the understanding of the impermanence that makes one a stream winner. The reflection on impermanence. Okay? Let's go to the short reflection. The sutta is always reminding us, asking us questions, or rather encouraging us to ask ourselves important questions. Where are we right now in our lives? In other words, how far on the path of samsara have we traveled, or are we going round in a circle, coming back to the same thing every time? In other words, to be a Buddhist, in a sense, is to break the cycle of things, to rise higher in a spiral towards personal development, to rise like a lotus above the waters, the dark waters of ignorance and craving. Through self-understanding, the answer lies within us. To constantly look within, ever to pass our remote control to others, then we lose control of ourselves. We will never grow. So reflecting in this way, the stream winning teaching is telling us we can attain this wonderful state through our own effort, and we need to in this life itself by reflecting on impermanence. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma. By the power of such karma, may we be filled with the courage and the wisdom to aspire to stream winning, at least in this life itself. In this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to all the beings here, to everyone in this temple. May they be well and happy. And also to our loved ones, our family and friends, people who have been very kind to us. May they be well and happy. And to all those seeking the Dharma, those who have difficulties with seeking the Dharma, may they awaken to the true Dharma in this life itself. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.